Welcome to the Behind the Drapes podcast. I'm your host, Expo Rich, and I'm here with a legend in the industry, Tony Calanca, Calanca and Associates principal. And I really appreciate you being here with me today, Tony.
Happy to be here, Rich.
And so I've been doing this podcast a while, and I like to talk to people within the industry and understanding their journey and how they got to what the evolution of their career. And I always like to start with how did you first get involved with trade shows? What was your first access point?
Probably a story you've heard many times before. I sort of fell into it. I was applying to jobs, sending in resumes, telling everybody on the interview I thought it was the greatest company and I wanted to have a career there. I got called back for an interview and got hired by a small company in Chicago that was just being acquired by Connors, which became Reed.
Right.
So I started there at the bottom rung of the ladder.
Yeah.
Right? Hauling suitcases of tools around to repair sales lead systems, the old credit card sweat, right? And that office had a centralized operations department. I worked in that. And about a year later, a guy named Bob Krakoff, who was the president of the company, asked me if I would transfer out to the New York office and start a centralized department. And I was single, and I said, sure. I don't own anything.
Right.
I don't owe anybody anything. That
Perfect
sounds like fun.
opportunity.
I'll do that. Right. So I went out there, and that's when he just started rolling up companies, acquiring companies. And I got into that office when there were 41 people in Stamford, Connecticut, and grew with the company. And I was lucky enough to have some great bosses and mentors, and spent over 20 years there.
So Bob Krakoff is the reason why Connecticut is the hub of...
It really is.
Yeah.
He moved Connors from New York City up there. There were several other guys. The owners of Clapp and Poliak were up there. Reed, Connors bought them.
Yeah.
They rolled in, and what happens is when you buy a company, some of the senior people kind of flow out.
Yeah.
And they were in the Connecticut area. They started their own things and it built. Fred Favado was up there. Dave Heifetz was up there. So oddly, it became kind of a hub for trade show organizers.
And so your journey was through, you started with setting up infrastructure for...
No, I started in what you and I would call, for an organizer, operations, right? We called it exhibits at that time, but we then changed the name to operations. And it was the standard stuff that you deal with on a show operations manager now. And I grew through that, and the department grew, and they added stuff. They added customer service. And then a great, amazing boss named Jim Alec said, I want you to stay at running operations, but I want you to look after the consumer show division at the same time. So that was terrific because it gave me a chance to switch branches in the tree without risking I was going to fall off.
Yeah.
And that worked, and then I was given a trade show portfolio, and I went up from there.
Yeah. And that's, so at that time, it was Reed throughout that, or...
Yeah, Connors
changed.
They changed the branding to Reed in 1993, and I stayed there. I made the switch in 96, switched branches, and I stayed at Reed till 2003. I left there, had my own shop for a while, which, as you know, is a much different deal than getting a paycheck every week or every 2 weeks, to having to sweat making the payroll.
Yeah.
One of my big clients was Advanced Star.
Yeah.
And Joe Loja asked me to come inside. So I did that. And that was really interesting and really good. Another very smart guy, really smart. I was with Advanced Star through a couple of flips. We were owned by private equity. Private equity was very good to me. We then sold to UBM. And then UBM was sold to Informa, and I left there in 2020, something like that.
Yeah.
Right? And back having my own shop again.
Yeah. And reinventing it all over again.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, what I know of your career is the great things you've done through UBM and so it was great to learn about like where that all started at. So, and so who are some of the people, I know you mentioned some names there, but who are some of the people that really taught you about leadership and how to build teams and things like that? Who are some of your mentors?
I was lucky to have, listen, we've all had a mixture of bosses, right?
Right.
My very first boss was a great guy named Larry Charlin. He hired me, and he was very low key and not into formalities, but he was unafraid to tell you when you were doing something wrong, right?
Yeah.
He was also happy to recognize that there was more than one right way. Bob Krakoff was an amazing boss, and taught me about the corporate world.
Okay.
Right? I was learning about the trade show world, but I was so young, I didn't really know anything about corporate organizations.
Right.
I learned a lot from him. And then I got to go back to Jim Alec, an amazingly bright guy. He had worked at Ford with Bob Krakoff.
Okay.
So they were friends for decades. And Bob brought him in to run North America. All of us adored Jim. Such a smart guy.
Yeah.
And in this industry,
Yeah.
you see a lot of people, particularly in the show organizer world, that have big egos.
Right.
Jim
I would never admit that.
Jim had no discernible ego. He was an amazing guy. A terrific boss. You learn. He was one of those bosses where you didn't want to disappoint him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he was amongst the best. And then I have to say Joe Loja, another guy who was very smart and knew trade shows. I worked with him on the fashion stuff.
Okay.
And that is so different than any other trade shows I've worked on, right? We've worked on hundreds of different trade shows in different industries. Fashion is so different than any other ones I worked on. That was an eye-opener for me.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Really different set of the exhibitors and sponsors and the
different sales cycle.
Yeah.
Everything's different. I learned there were 50 shades of white.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
that.
I've gotten that white wrong before as well. Right. So now that you're back to your own shop, what are some of the things that you're really excited about for 25 and 26?
Well, you listen to what's going on in the conference today, and you see there's so much entrepreneurial stuff. I know people start to get verklempt when they see the big companies rolling stuff up, right? I mean, Reed buys stuff. Informa seems like it's bought everything that moved. But the senior people leave there, they start some of their own stuff, but the exciting stuff comes from people who don't know they're in the event business and don't know, right? Yeah. They don't know that this can't be done.
Yeah.
And they struggle, and they have such passion and belief in something, they get it going. And 10 years later, 7 years later, they're an overnight success.
Yeah.
And you can see that by several of the panelists.
Some of the speakers that were here, for sure.
I think that's tremendous. And I also think what's good is the way that the benefits, the value to face is changing. Go back 5 years, right? Before COVID, pretty much status quo. We've been hearing for decades that virtual was going to kill face-to-face.
That was always the buzz, right?
Virtual had 2 years. We were off the table, had 2 years to kill the business and didn't.
Still couldn't.
Right?
Yeah.
Didn't kill it. So it's back, and it's coming back in different ways. And I love watching the young people with the new ideas, right? It used to be, a trade show was really two things, buyers and sellers.
Yep.
If you brought enough buyers and put them in the aisles, you had success. Well, now it's not. It's really about what we call the 4 C's, right? It's community, it's commerce, it's celebration, it's connections. It's all those things.
Yeah.
Now, there's got to be one main one that brings them together. You're not going to get 30,000 people to come together to a trade event just to celebrate.
Right.
But it's a key, right? They want to do that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because if you have choices out there where you want to go and do business, what marketplace, and you know that I'm going to have a great time and I'm going to sell and buy product here, or I'm going to go over here and not have a great time, but I can sell and buy. Where do I want to go?
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
Right, and that's even more so with the younger people coming in. Right,
Yeah.
they're much less interested in stuff and much more interested in experience.
Yes.
And that desire for experience doesn't stop when they turn on their work cell phone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's very true.
It's a different world.
So here at SISO, and we're at the CEO Summit, and I know you've been to one or two of these before.
Couple.
And I know you've been deeply involved with the organization on the board, the chairman even.
Right.
And what is let's just say one or two of the things, the value adds that you find being part of SISO for your career and everything?
Okay. This is the most valuable conference I've ever been to. And I've been to them around the world for networking. And it's not just layer one, meeting somebody.
Right.
It's meeting somebody who you want to do business with or who wants to do business with you. I would guess that this is perhaps the number one spot in America where deals in this industry get started. Right?
Yeah,
I've been
I can
involved
see that.
in 4 or 5 acquisition deals here, and I've been involved in a couple of selling deals here. But that's one of the reasons that people come, and everybody loves the content here. But you'll notice during some of the sessions, there's a lot of little side meetings going on, and they're doing business,
Yeah,
and that's a valuable
true.
reason. The other thing is, it's easy to think you know everything. And the way I do, listen, if you're in this conference, you're pretty successful at what you do.
Right.
So it's easy to start thinking, I know how to do these things.
I got it figured out.
This got me here, right? When you listen to other people
Right.
coming at it from a completely different angle,
Yeah.
it's nice to know that you don't have a monopoly on the truth,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that you can learn. And that's phenomenal.
Yeah, and one thing that I love about this environment is that people are very open to helping you solve your problems. Like, you can talk to peers, and nobody's holding their cards too tight. They're genuinely want you to win. So people ask questions, and people are very forthcoming with good answers.
That's true. It's unusual too, isn't it? Because at a macro level, we're all in the same industry. So I guess you could say we're competitors, but very infrequently is someone who's running a widget show in Cleveland here competing with the guy who's running a widget show in Detroit, and they don't want to talk to each other.
Right.
People are very generous and giving with their knowledge and their experience.
Yeah, it's been a great community over the years, and I've been involved now for 10 years, and it's been a great piece of my growth as well. So,
and I will bet you've met a lot of clients or potential clients here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know what happens? It's one of those things that year one, nothing, year two, nothing, and pretty soon somebody says, wait a minute, I know a guy, call Rich.
That's exactly the case. Yeah, that's exactly the case. But thank you so much for doing it with me.
Yeah.
I appreciate you being here.
Delighted.
And,
Thanks for having me.
I know a lot of people are going to be excited to hear your story.
Excellent. Thanks, Rich.